Holla holla, Claudine9 here, and today we'll be discussing the brutal history of Ever After High, the shady thing Mattel did to Ever After High's animators, hidden secrets you might have missed in the animated series, why was Ever After High cancelled, and is Darling Charming Applewhite's true love, plus unreleased dolls and prototypes that were quickly pulled from the market. First, make sure you turn on notifications and click subscribe so you never miss the tea on your favorite dolls. Now, let's dive in. Ever After High is a spin-off of Mattel's Monster High doll line. It was created for doll fans aged 9 to 13 who didn't find the goth edge of Monster High interesting. Instead of the sons and daughters of legendary monsters, Ever After High is the school for children of famous fairy tale characters. Beginning with Ever After High's earliest carnation, development began sometime in 2012 during the popularity of ABC's Once Upon a Time, which also depicts Snow White as having a blonde-haired daughter. A new team of Mattel executives were hired specifically to create future franchises based on the Monster High model. So how did MGA, the makers of Bratz, force Mattel to make Ever After High? Garrett Sander, the creator of Monster High, revealed on his Instagram that before Ever After High, he designed for Cosmic High, a high school in outer space. But MGA's Novi Stars were released with a similar concept, so Mattel scrapped the idea. Stefan Sumner, a former Barbie designer, did early sketches of the Ever After High line. He says Mattel envisioned a line of witch dolls, then realized MGA already had one. Because MGA kept coming out with these ideas first, Mattel decided to shift and make princess dolls instead. But did you know Bratz planned on making a princess line too? Bratz Twisted was a concept that MGA created to compete with Mattel, but the idea was scrapped and the dolls never came out. Because the dolls were based on traditional fairy tales, Mattel didn't have to pay Disney licensing fees. Disney didn't like the competition. But did Disney descendants kill Ever After High? More on that later. Little is known about the development of the Ever After High franchise, but shout out to @boots.catlin for helping us find this Ever After High concept trailer. FixPix Studios created a stop-motion sizzle reel under the alias Thunder High that depicts the world of Ever After in a slightly different way than the one we know and love. In this sizzle, Applewhite, voiced by Jonquil Good, is seen choosing between two wooded paths. She's stopped by Cerise Hood, who tells her she's taking the wrong path. The duo is interrupted by Tiny the Giant in a scene that parallels the one we see in Apple's Tale, The Story of a Royal.
You dropped your books on the path, and here, I carried your books.
Oh, aren't you the sweetest little thing?
Can I carry your books?
Why, Tiny, aren't you the sweetest little thing?
Knife-throwing Cerise is kind of epic. What do you think of this bizarre concept trailer? On May 30th, 2013, the first 6 Ever After High dolls were sold at Justice. Justice also produced licensed merchandise like the Royal or Rebel Diary, various charm necklaces, and t-shirts with Ever After High's original key-shaped logo. What did you think of the original Ever After High dolls? I think we really took them for granted. On the same day, Ever After High's YouTube channel posted Raven's Tale, the story of a rebel, and Apple's Tale, the story of a royal, depicting two different sides of the same story. In the world of Ever After High, the continued existence of these fairy tales depends on their children reliving their stories. Raven Queen doesn't want to follow her story as the next evil queen because she isn't evil, which sets the foundation for the Ever After High animated series. Apple, on the other hand, is depicted as being excited to take on the role of the next Snow White, mostly because Apple has the privilege of living out a happily ever after. Did you catch these hidden changes to the Ever After story? On Ever After High's YouTube page, Raven Queen is introduced by one of the 3 little pigs, but in the version that aired on Nickelodeon, this was changed to be a goat from Billy Goat's Gruff. It's unclear as to why these changes were made, but it's interesting nonetheless. But why was the fandom so attached to these characters? Well, aside from having highly detailed dolls that could do hundreds of poses and featured intricately detailed outfits, as the franchise grew, fans became more attached to a character's relatability and story, so conversation sparked about which character was being selfish. Raven, who wanted to choose her own path, putting all the other fairy tales at risk of poofing out of existence, or Apple, who wants Raven to follow her mother's footsteps despite the fact she knows Raven will live a miserable life if she does. Fans were split between Team Apple and Team Raven, some even shipping the pair together. Speaking of LGBTQ ships, keep on watching as we'll be discussing potentially queer-coded moments at Ever After High. Which side are you on, Royal or Rebel? Personally, growing up, I was Team Raven. Now that I'm older and I rewatched the story of Ever After, it seems like Royal is a political party that holds traditional values, while Rebel is a group that is, dare I say, progressive. But despite the divide of Royal versus Rebel, I don't think it's so binary. It's complex because both characters are genuinely being selfish and altruistic at the same time.
We can be good and evil, happy and sad, royal and rebel, many things all at once.
So then why did the doll line end if fans loved it so much? We have answers. From 2014 to late 2015, Mattel continued to produce a variety of Ever After High dolls and merchandise to parallel Monster High. Ever After High counted for $53 million in sales during 2014. There was such an explosion of product releases that fans couldn't keep up. In 2014, 121 Monster High and Ever After High dolls were released in that year alone. And by 2015, 136 more dolls were released, leaving consumers complaining it was too difficult trying to collect them both. During that same year, Mattel lost the rights to create Disney dolls, which was in part due to Ever After High. Several former Mattel employees point to the 2013 release of Ever After High as the last straw for Disney. Chris Sinclair, who was Mattel's CEO in 2015, agreed. But with Disney dolls moving over to Hasbro, Mattel had nothing left to lose. Beginning in 2015, Ever After High had a soft reboot. The dolls and franchise remained mostly the same, but they were given a new logo, new theme song, and the original slogan, "The end is just the beginning," was changed to "Princesses are powerful." This was likely due to the fact parents complained princess dolls were sending a negative message about being passive and enabling the alleged princess phase children go through. By rebranding to have female empowerment at the forefront, they likely planned on competing further with Hasbro's Disney dolls, as Disney has been trying to shake the image that their princesses are damsels in distress. Pioneering this message for Ever After was Darling Charming, whose destiny was literally to be a damsel in distress. Darling rebels against her role and disguises herself as a knight in shining armor. Am I the only one who sensed the tension between her and Ginger in Way to Wonderland? That's just my personal ship. But something magical happens when she gives Apple White CPR to save her after she takes a bite of the evil queen's poison apple in Dragon Games. This was another polarizing moment in Ever After history, as some fans argue that the two aren't representing LGBTQ characters, just how girls can save other girls and the power of friendship, whereas others argue that this is clearly a queer-coded moment, in which Darling is revealed as Applewhite's true love. Since Apple is cursed, it would have required more than CPR to save her, hence the magical glow. Regardless of which is true, the goal was to show a woman could play the role of a hero just as well as a man could. Do you think Darling's kiss was an LGBTQ moment, or was it just CPR? Let's discuss it more below. Fans have also noticed Darling Charming wears the same colors as the trans pride flag, blue, pink, and white. This all changed in 2016 when Mattel chose to reboot Monster High entirely. I explained the Monster High reboot in another video, link to check that out in the description for later. This left Mattel $3 billion shorter than usual, and if being broke wasn't enough, Disney's Descendants, a franchise very similar to Ever After High, was taking the world by storm. When it came time to choose which doll to buy on store shelves, Ever After High was getting last pick. Darling Charming was changed from knight in shining armor to this, as she traded out sports gear and combat boots for cupcakes and cappuccino makers. Fans didn't like the newly added smiles or cheap fabric, seeing as one of the doll line's perks was insanely detailed clothing. Mattel produced webisodes less and less, but what did Mattel do to screw over their animators? I'll be going over that in a bit. In 2017, about 20 Ever After High dolls were produced. Fans hated the reboot's lack of posability. One comment jokes, "Her arms and legs can't bend. Wonder if her neck can move." Another says, "This is so disappointing. I hate the lack of articulation in her elbows and knees." Unreleased dolls included color-changed Michelle Lemur, daughter of the Little Mermaid, whose hair and outfit changed by spraying her with water, a budget sleepover line with Maddie, Raven, and Darling, plus a deluxe-themed line with Apple, Farrah, and Holly, which included reused accessories. Between Disney Descendants dolls, which were fully posable, and LOL Surprise, which dominated the market, Ever After High didn't have a leg to stand on. And Mattel officially announced they'd closed the chapter on Ever After High, and this tweet made in August 2018. What happened to Ever After High's website? By early 2020, the Ever After High website was deleted completely. It now redirects you to Mattel's shop. Mattel likely removed the website due to limited traffic and the fact they've indicated no intention of reviving the franchise. But what was it that Mattel did that was so shady towards the Ever After High animation team? According to Golden Owl 25 on Reddit, Guru, the animation company that made Ever After High, was working on next episodes when allegedly Mattel pulled the rug from under them and never responded to their calls or emails anymore. So if Mattel decided to cancel Ever After High, I guess it wouldn't make sense to invest thousands of dollars into making new webisodes. But to ghost a company entirely sounds very unprofessional. Unfortunately, Netflix has officially announced it will be removing Ever After High from its lineup after 6 years of being featured. According to what's on Netflix.com, in the case of Ever After High, they believe it's down to the fact it's not a full Netflix original. And what it comes down to is that Mattel owns the license to the series, not Netflix. The website also notes the show could go back to its original YouTube home, or Mattel could sell the rights to another streamer, which is very unlikely. I'm really disappointed. It's difficult to watch the movies on YouTube. What do you think about this? As of today, Ever After High is still available on Netflix despite being slated to have been removed on August 5th, over a month ago. If you're interested in learning about more doll scandals, check out my channel to get the tea on dolls like Monster High, LOL Surprise, and Bratz. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, click subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates on the dolls you love. If you have an idea for future Ever After High content you'd like to see on my channel, or general video ideas, let me know below. As always, thanks for watching. See ya!